Hey, how's it going, friends? Welcome back. Welcome. Hey, how's it going, friends? Welcome to VR Revelations. Thank you for tuning in. It is February 8th, the year of our Lord 2023. If you could, please give this video a like and make sure you subscribe for future updates. So let's jump right into it. And do excuse me, I am a little bit sore from the throat here. But yeah, it looks like yours truly, Zelensky, is in the UK. As we are going to read here, he has traveled there to pretty much make an effort to try and rally the UK leadership to bolster its support for Ukraine, and specifically when it comes to fighter jets and long-range missiles. So Zelensky has essentially traveled there. He did just hold a speech there before the parliament there in the UK. He also talked to the prime minister there, Rishi Sunak, or however you pronounce his name. Of course, Boris Johnson was the one that was making a big push for the UK support for Ukraine, but, he was ousted or resigned as the UK's prime minister, but still, he's been lingering in the background of this visit by Zelensky to the UK like a Dracula figure that's like bloodthirsty, for war. And he actually made a statement and he said, why isn't the UK providing everything that Ukraine needs? Boris the buffoon Johnson there still making ridiculous statements and warmongering. But yeah, I believe after this, Zelensky is sort of making a trip around Europe. I think he's going to meet with Emmanuel Macron, the president of France, or prime minister, whatever his title is, and also with the prime minister of Germany, Olaf Scholz. And you got to remember, I believe back in December is when Zelensky actually made his first trip out of Ukraine when he visited the United States, and he also held a speech before Congress there. And we know that right after that, Russia sort of accelerated their offensive, and soon after that visit to the U.S., Russia ended up taking control of the strategic town of Soledar. And we now know that Bakhmut has become the focus of Russia. Excuse my cat there. He's very annoying, guys. And so it looks like Bakhmut is about to fall. Zelensky has pretty much doubled down on his efforts to try and hold Bakhmut, even as the West is trying to downplay the importance of Bakhmut. And let's actually go ahead and take a look at the map here for those of you that might not be aware of what area I'm talking about specifically. But we can see here the war front, of course, to the east of Ukraine, where Russia continues to advance. But then if we look right up here, we can see that Soledar is right up here. Of course, that is now under Russian control, as you can see here by the live UA map. And here's Bakhmut. Now, like I said, Zelensky in the last couple of days and weeks has doubled down, saying that Bakhmut will not fall, and many Ukrainian leaders have made references to Bakhmut, saying that it's pretty much a fortress, an impenetrable fortress, while at the same time the West is sort of foreshadowing the fall of Bakhmut and trying to downplay its importance. But, that's pretty much contradicted by the Ukrainian leadership themselves, since they are so ferociously fighting for Bakhmut. And again, Bakhmut is a very strategic area and city. Again, rightly so, the Ukrainians have labeled it a fortress, and that's why it has been the scene of ferocious battles here. But now, since the fall of Soledar, Russia has been focusing on Bakhmut now more strongly, and so they do continue to advance. Again, they are going to encircle the city now. There are reports that Wagner forces, I believe, are deeper into the city. As you can see here, live UA map is updating the situation by the hour. We can see that there are artillery attacks on Ukrainian forces right up here. While at the same time, Russia seems to be making a major push towards Chasiz Yar right up here. And again, it would be very strategic for the Russians to actually take control of Chasiz Yar first, because this was supposed to be the fallback point for the Ukrainian forces that are in Bakhmut, since from a report I read a while back, Chasiz Yar right here is actually situated at a higher elevation, so it's a good vantage point to launch artillery strikes down on Bakhmut once the Russians do take over. So it looks like they are actually getting closer to Chasiz Yar here. Once they have control, I mean, Bakhmut is going to be left behind, and it's going to be that much easier to trap whatever Ukrainian forces are there. So again, I've been reporting on Bakhmut constantly, and I do have my eye on that. But I think Zelensky is very aware of this, so he found it necessary to travel once again out of Ukraine over to the UK. And again, he's pretty much asking for an entire army. We know that Germany, the UK, France, I think Spain, and Poland are all going to be sending tanks over to, also the United States are going to be sending tanks. They pledged tanks, and so some of those will be arriving by March. The U.S. tanks are going to take much longer, with rumors of it possibly taking up to a year. Now, Zelensky said that, these tanks arriving by August will be too late. So the situation is critical. If he's saying it's going to be late, he's pretty much saying that, the war is going to be over by then. And now he's making a major push for fighter jets and long-range missiles. He's pretty much trying to throw the whole kitchen sink at Russia right now in a desperate attempt. There are videos out there circling around Telegram and other places around the web showing Ukrainian forces pretty much, recruiting kids that are 16 years old. They're training them. They're pretty much taking children to war. You have to remember, that's literally one of the last desperate moves that nations take before they lose. You have to remember that, Nazi Germany, they started recruiting children to fight in the war right before they were defeated. So looks like the situation is very desperate for Zelensky. He has now traveled to ask Mr. Sunak here, we'll see how long he lasts as Prime Minister, for fighter jets and long-range missiles. But again, I think the writing is on the wall, and I think these nations are going to continue to, pretend like they're going to give in to these requests. They're going to pledge these arms, but they're never really going to get there in full force, because they know that it will just be a waste, since Russia will inevitably overcome Ukraine. But anyways, let's go ahead and take a quick read here at this analysis by the BBC concerning this visit by Volodymyr Zelensky over to the UK. So it says, the day started with a commitment from the UK to help train Ukrainian pilots. But following an impassioned plea by Zelensky for fighter jets themselves, that pledge gradually shifted. Again, it looks like the UK is going to be training Ukrainian pilots, but apparently it literally takes like up to a year, if not longer. So, again, all these promises are being made, but Zelensky is saying, no, we need these things now. We can't wait for a year. We can't even wait for tanks till August, because it'll be too late by then. So what good is a promise? What good does it do me if you promise me to provide me with food if I only have a day left to live, and you tell me that you'll give me food in a week? That promise is no good. So, anyways, it continues. The PM has now ordered the Defense Secretary to examine ways that the UK can provide Ukraine with fighter jets. The RAF has a limited number of aircraft it could theoretically provide Ukraine, including about 20 older Typhoon jets. However, there is a danger that Britain is writing checks that it will struggle to cash. The RAF is already facing a backlog in the training of its own fast jet pilots. Maintenance and upkeep of older aircraft is also more difficult. Even the Prime Minister has admitted that if Britain does supply fast jets, it will be for longer term, not the near future. Again, that's the key right there, guys. Everything is being promised in the near future, and Ukraine just doesn't have that time. So let me actually show you a picture of these Typhoon jets. As you can see here, there's one of them. These are supposed to be older aircraft. I believe they first flown in 1986. Let's take a quick look at the summary down here. The Eurofighter Typhoon is a highly agile aircraft designed to be an effective dogfighter in combat. Later production aircraft have been increasingly better equipped to undertake air-to-surface strike missions and to be compatible with an increasing number of different armaments and equipment, including Storm Shadow, Brimstone, and Marty ER missiles. The Typhoon had its combat debut during the 2011 military intervention of Libya with the UK's Royal Air Force, RAF, and the Italian Air Force performing aerial reconnaissance and ground strike missions. The type has also taken primary responsibility for air defense duties for the majority of customer nations. Again, it's it's a very capable aircraft, though its design is a lot older. Of course, it's probably not going to do too well against the modern Russian jets. But what the Ukrainians need is something that can reach into Russian territory. That's why they're asking for these fighter jets and also for long-range missiles. Of course, Russia has warned that these things will have catastrophic consequences. Now we're going to jump over to a Reuters analysis here, again, of this meeting by Volodymyr Zelensky. We'll actually end this video with this article here. So it says, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky began a tour of Europe on Wednesday in search of better aerial firepower to turn the war against Russia, winning a British pledge to train Ukrainian pilots on advanced NATO fighter jets. Again, that training takes years. So, these promises are being made, in the near future, but in reality, they're going to take way too long. Ukraine needs the help immediately. On just his second trip abroad since the war began a year ago, Zelensky met British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak and King Charles. He was later due in Paris for dinner with French President Emmanuel Macron and German Chancellor Olaf Scholz. There you go. I believe earlier I said Prime Minister, guys. I get all confused with all these titles. Presidents, kings, chancellors, whatever. They're all rulers. So there you have it. He is going to be meeting with Emmanuel Macron and Olaf Scholz. We've all been worried about you and thinking about your country for so long, I can't tell you, Charles told him. That sounds like a load of lies. In a speech to British lawmakers, Zelensky hammered home his plea for combat aircraft, which he referred to as wings of freedom. Right, yeah, a lot of freedom in Ukraine, sure. Western countries have so far stopped short of providing planes or weapons that can strike deep inside Russia, because Russia has been warning them against providing such weapons. He gave a pilot's helmet to the parliamentary speaker with the message, "We have freedom, give us wings to protect it." If I remember correctly, when he traveled to the United States and spoke before Congress, he took a flag that was signed by Ukrainian soldiers in Bakhmut. So, again, looks like he now he gave the parliamentary speaker a pilot's helmet. So, 2 years ago, he had left the British Parliament with "thanks for delicious English tea," Zelensky said. Now he would leave thanking you in advance for powerful English planes. Well, not that powerful. Looks like they're going to be sending, if they do, those older Typhoon jets. Russia's embassy to Britain warned London against sending fighter jets to Ukraine. So there's Russia's warning. They're keeping an eye on this whole situation very closely, saying such a move would have ramifications for the entire world. Wow, okay. World War III. TASS news agency reported Britain announced plans to expand a program training Ukraine's military to ensure its pilots could fly sophisticated jets of NATO military alliance standard. The announcement gave no time frame. Again, that's the issue right here. Zelensky has said it himself, time is not on their side. And stopped short of a commitment to provide Kyiv with British jets. But it signaled a shift that could pave the way for other nations to send planes. Zelensky's tour of Europe, which will also include a European Union summit in Brussels, follows a surprise visit to Washington in December. The choreography of meeting the British, French, and German leaders the same day was a sign of his assiduous care in cultivating Western opinion. Britain announced the addition of new names to its Russia sanctions blacklist, as well as plans for more military equipment for Kyiv, including unspecified longer-range weapons. As Zelensky wrapped up his London speech, air raid sirens rang out in Ukraine's capital, Kyiv, and all clear later sounded. Germany's Scholz said he expected strong support for Ukraine from this week's EU summit and a new round of European sanctions on Russia around the anniversary of the invasion. I mean, they threw the kitchen sink at Russia already with sanctions, so I don't know what more they can do. And according to the International Monetary Fund, Russia's economy is actually expected to rise and grow, while pretty much all of Western economies are expected to go down. So all of this is backfiring. Scholz, publicly more cautious than some other Western leaders on arms delivery, said decisions on weapons were best coordinated behind the scenes rather than announced by countries in a public competition to outdo each other. So there you have it, guys. You guys can go read up on all these articles. It's being reported by pretty much all mainstream media outlets. And again, what I'm getting from this is that the situation is very dire in Ukraine, as we know. So Zelensky found it necessary, again, to travel outside of Ukraine, right? Outside of Ukraine. Who knows? He could be staying in the UK for all we know. And so he's making these requests because the situation is desperate, because Russia is continuing its advance and time is not on Ukraine's side. And so what I think is going to happen here is that the more obvious it is that Ukraine is losing ground and that it's getting ready to lose the war, the slower the arrival of these weapons is going to be. And so the longer that all these other nations are going to procrastinate pretty much, because they know that pretty much these weapons aren't going to make a difference. The only way that Ukraine will be able to actually pose, a major threat to Russia is if, like warmongering Boris Johnson said, if they give everything they need, right? If they give them fighter jets, long-range missiles, I mean, just pretty much all of the armies from the West, like send all that equipment, everything, go all in, all the chips to the center of the table, and provide them to Ukraine, then they could pose a threat to Russia. But again, you're not going to defeat a nuclear superpower. It's suicide, right? It's mutually assured destruction. At that point, Russia would find it necessary to use nuclear weapons. And now we're talking about biblical prophecies. But I don't think that's going to be the case over Ukraine. As General Douglas has said, this is just an opportunity that the United States, NATO, and the West are pretty much abusing, right, in order to inflict as much damage as they can to Russia. But again, it's all been miscalculated and it's all backfiring. Russia is only continuing to grow stronger, more confident, and once it is all over and it is clear that Russia is the victor, that Russia has imposed their will and their resolve and sought it through, then they will come out of this as the bigger and stronger nation, and the United States' influence will diminish on the international stage. And so again, this is going to create this multipolar world order that Russia has been talking about, where the U.S. is no longer seen as the big dog, right? As the pretty much as the vanguard of the world, but it will now be Russia. And again, they're going to continue to make these pledges to send these missiles and these weapons, but I think they'll be sort of just leaking them little by little to make it seem like, hey, we tried to support Ukraine as much as we could. We thought that, there was a possibility to win this, but unfortunately, Russia was just too much. And yeah, at the end of the day, I think that Zelensky is going to be forced to negotiate. If not, and it seems unlikely because he seems to be very stubborn and dead set on his hatred towards Vladimir Putin and Russia. I think he's going to be ousted. He's going to be ousted by his own people. His own people will probably turn on him as Russia continues to destroy Ukraine and advance and take territory. Or he's going to flee the country himself once he feels that he's really being threatened. And my opinion is the later predictions are the more likely. I don't think there will be any negotiation between him and Vladimir Putin. I think he will be ousted from power, or he will flee the country himself. He could possibly be killed, of course. That's always a possibility in wartime. But yeah, I think that what we're going to see is Zelensky. We're going to see all these pledges from all these nations, but the weapons are just they're never gonna show up. And the ones that do are just gonna be so little in number and quantity that they're not gonna make a difference. And I think Zelensky is slowly realizing that all this is just another act in pretty much in his career as an actor. It's just another chapter, and all these people are lying to him. They've been, they've been giving him false hopes, and so when he realizes this, I think he will flee the country, and eventually I think he will be hated by his people. But there you have it, guys. Remember, the truth is stranger than fiction. Again, thank you for tuning in. I know I was on a break, but I am back, thank God. I will be making more videos, so make sure you give this one a like, and make sure you subscribe so you can get notifications whenever I do drop more videos. Anyways, thank you, have a wonderful day, and God bless.